and we were speaking about Ato Kohen La'olam concerning Ato Yeducha Achecha. We were explaining that there's two levels. There's the level of Ato Sisus Hashmaimus Oretz without a Hey, because the level of Elokus that's involved in creating the world is missing the letter Hey, which signifies 5 different levels of the 5 Partsufim, Keser, Chochmah, Bina, Zoh, and Malchus. And we, through our Avodah, we are able to draw down from Ato with a Hey, Ato Avayla Vadecha, the level before the Tzimtzum, that over there was no room for the Oilamus, and only through the Tzimtzum that turned the Ato with a Hey to Ato without a Hey, it becomes a possibility for the worlds. But we said that when we do our Avodah, so we draw down from the level of Ato Hu, Havaya Levadecha, from the level of Yehuda, from the level of the Ato with a Hey before the Tzimtzum, into the Ato without a Hey that should also have the level of the Hey. And that's the idea of Yehuda Ato Yeducha Achecha, that Yehuda, which is a level of Malchus, now becomes a level of Ato with a Hey. And we said that's also the idea of Ato Kohen La'olam. So now the Rebbe is going to ask, on the second paragraph on page 10, line 10, how is it possible? If it was beforehand, we were not able to be created with the Ato with a Hey, or else we'd become totally in this battle. How is it possible that now we could get the level of Ato with a Hey? So he's going to go back to what he said earlier, that there are 2 explanations about Kapitel Kuf Yud Aleph, where it says over there, Ata Kohen La'olam. Who is the Ata Kohen La'olam referring to? And as well, in general, who that entire kapitel is referring to. We brought down initially that it's a level of David, or it's referring to Avraham Avinu. And we also mentioned the Zoyar, that the level of Knesset Yisrael, the level of Malchus, which is also the level of David, needs to be miskasher b'yamin to be able to be in this level of Ato. So now, based on that, we're going to understand how is it possible that even though we were initially created with a level of Ato without a Hey, we can reach the level of Ato with the Hey. Line 10 in page 10. We still need to understand how is in the capability of created beings. That their entire existence is only after the level of Malchus, which is a level of Ata lacking the Hey. So our whole existence is dependent upon not having the revelation, because if we have the revelation, so then it's going to be too much for us. We're not going to be able to exist. And then we're saying that afterwards, that draw down through their avodah the revelation of the Hey. Concerning this, he explains over there the Rebbe Rashab and the Maimer, based on that Zoyar, that the Zoyar says, Shezehu Aidei Iskashras Bechesed Avram, through binding oneself with the Chesed of Avram, through connection and tying oneself with the level of Chesed Avram, that enables us that with our Avodah we can go from the Ato without the Hey to Ato with the Hey. The canal, like we said also earlier, because of Ata Kohen La'olam. That when it says in Kapitel Kuf Yud Aleph, you are a Kohen forever, who is it referring to? So there's one explanation that's going on David, and another explanation, Koi Gamal Avram, it's also referring to Avram Avinu. V'hainu, this means Shamshach, this aspect that we're drawing down. Shagam b'Sfiras HaMalchus Yegili Hey, that also in the sphere of Malchus there should be a revelation of the Hey, of the Va'atom, Yaidei B'chinas HaChesed, that's through the level of Chesed. Chesed, which is the level of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, we know, is the spirit of Chesed. Gilu, the Shezeu Afilu, Aidei B'chinas HaChesed Shebeseder Eshtal Shlos. This takes place even through the level of chesed of Seder Ishtalshlus, that affects that it should be enabled that the hay should come down. That chesed, how does chesed reach the level of malchus? So the chesed is part of the partzuf of Zah. Chesed is part of the level of Zeir Ampin. For the level from Zeir Ampin to reach malchus, there has to be yichud Zeir Ampin v'nukva. There has to be the union of the midos and malchus. Hamshacha Zeir Ampin or Sfiras HaMalchus, it has to draw down the level of the midos and malchus. And the truth is, we're not just talking about the chesed of Seder Ishtalshlus, v'alachas kama v'kama, how much more so, kasher hamshochim, b'chinas ha-chesed, shalomaylu miseder Ishtalshlus. When the level that we're drawing down is from the level of chesed that's deep beyond the chain order of descent, shezeu ha-chesed, dan the Avram, the level of the chesed of Avram Avinu is higher than the Seder Ishtalshlus. All of them are concerning Avram Avinu. It says in Sefer Yeshua, it says Ha'odam Ha'godol Ba'anoki, the great person, the huge person amongst the giants. This description is not meant, Al Pi Chassidus, to be a physical description, but it's meant to describe Avram Avinu's level. That his level of chesed is not the level of chesed atzilus, but rather it is shah chesed shaloi hu beli gvul. His kindness is a level that's without boundary beyond atzilus. Because it has no boundaries, harei bevadai sheidei ze nimshach lamatom bebchinas hamalchus sheyeh bo hagilui da'atam oli. So surely, when chesed, that has the level of chesed that has no boundaries and no limitations whatsoever, gets involved, so therefore even malchus that normally gets from the level of ata without a hay is able to receive the ata the way it's full, the way it has the letter hay. This is also what the Zohar said, what we brought down earlier, that the Zohar says Yehuda Ata Yeducha Achecha. The Yehuda Ata, the Ata means from the word rulership. Why does the Ata show on rulership? Yehuda is level of Malchus, but what does adding the word Ata signify? For what reason does the word Ata show on rulership? Ki Ata without a hey ulashon nekeva. Ata without the letter hey is written, according to the Ksiv, it would have been pronounced at, the feminine. The ata, but when it's written full with the letter hey, ulashon zachar, it's the masculine form of the word. Vari darki shalish lichboish, Chazal say, it is the way of the man to conquer. Ve'ein darka shalish lichboish, it's not the way of the woman to conquer. V'hainu, this means she'inyan ha'kibush ha'olam, the idea on top of page Yud. Ein them in the Welt, conquering the world. Umitzad hazachar. This is a result of the level of the masculine. That the masculine is the one that's responsible for conquering and taking over the world in a way of, like we said before, shultanu, that he rules, that Rav Sanda, he's great. And zachar is also related to what we said before about chesed. The idea of zachar is the idea of chesed, because the idea of zachar is mashpia, nekeva is makabel, hashpa, that's chesed, that's giving, and also Chassidus puts the association ki zachar chazdoi. Zachar is also related to the word zachar, masculine. The level of masculine has to do with chesed. So because you have this level of chesed, you have this masculine level, through that becomes the Amshach Esfiras HaMalchus, the level of the feminine, because of the feminine on its own, like we said before, the woman, it's not her way to conquer. So over there, the revelation does not shine down here below. But here, the revelation will shine. Why is that so? Because you have the level of the masculine, you have the level of rulership, you have the level of the Zachar, the Chesed, that's higher than Seder Gestaltschluss, and therefore it rules, and therefore we say Yehuda Ata, that you are in a way of rulership. So the Rebbe concludes in line 6, according to this will be understood the connection between the two explanations in the pasuk of Ata Koyin La'olam. Initially explains that Ata Koyin La'olam is going on Avram Avinu. And afterwards he adds, as referring to David HaMelech, through the aspect that there's initially the idea of Avram Avinu. Bechinas HaChesed Shalamaylam Seder Ishtalshlos, the level of Chesed that is higher in the chain order of descent. Azai Nimshach Bechinas Ata Gam B'Madreges David. So then you could have the level of Ata also on the level of David, Bechinas HaMalchus. Because without Avraham, if you don't have Avraham, without Avraham Avinu's input, so then it's going to be Ata missing a Hey. But through the level of Avraham Avinu, through the level of Chesed, especially Chesed that's higher in the Seder Ishtalshlos, so it affects Shagam Ba'yah in the Ata Mole Hey also in the Malchus, which is on its own Ata without a Hey. It should be Ata with a Hey as well. Any question further to Ois Daled? So now the Rebbe continues further in the pasuk. Mamshech pasuk, line 14, page Yud. Al divrasi malki tzedek. What does it mean? Al divrasi malki tzedek after Ata Koyin La'olam. Shepirushay, that its meaning is al divras, by the word, which means pikudas, the command of malki tzedek by King Justice. Vahayud Yisera, and the letter Yud by the word Divrasi, that it's, since we're talking about Divras Malki Tzedek, it should say Divras or Divras Malki Tzedek. It should be the word of the righteous king. Why do we call it Divrasi with a Yud? So the extra Yud, Mevayra Tzemach Tzedek explains in his commentary on Tehillim, I think it is. It's similar to what it says, the Yud in the pasuk, the one who sits in the heaven. That should have said Hayoyshev Bashamayim. What's the Yoshvi? Valderach Zayud Magbila Shav, similar to that also what we have in Hallel, which says the one who sits high up. Why is he Magbi Hi Lashaves? It should have said Hamagbi Al Lashaves. Shigam Ke Nosefes, the Yoshvi, Magbihi, the Yud is also extra. Okay, the Isa Bazoyar, like it's brought down the Zoyar, Hayoyshev Mebayalei, the Zoyar already addressed this. It should have said Hayoyshev, the one who's sitting in the heavens. My Hayoshvi, what's the idea of Yoshvi? Betiret, and the Tzemach Tzedek explained, the Yud Moira al Yisoid Ab, or maybe the Zoyar is the one that explains that the Yud is showing on the level of Yisoid of the Sphira of Chachma. Varamaz was a very famous Pirush on the Zoyar of Moshe Zakuta, Sham Pirush. He explained over there on the Zoyar, Ki Chachma Ubina Eloim, the supernal level of Chachma Ubina. If you remember, we spoke about earlier in the Maimer that there is the level of the external joining of Chachma Ubina. That's the level of Chachma Bina, the level of Tvuna, Chitzonius Chachma, joining with Chitzonius Bina. And then we said there's Chachma Bina Eloin, that's the way Bina is Niskalol and Chachma. So he says over there, Nirmuzu Shneyem Ba'ois Yud B'Milua. By having the letter Yud with its Milui, in other words, the way it's spelled out phonetically, so then you have Chachma Bina, the way that the level of Elohim joined, that the Bina is Biskalas B'Chachma. Normally, we say the letter Yud itself shows on Chachma, and the letter Hey shows on Bina. But Yud, when it's written out phonetically, the way it's pronounced, it's Yud Vav Dalet. So the Ramaz says that when it's written out with the Miluyim, the Yud shows on the Chachma Ilayin, and the Vav Dalet indicates the Bina Ilayin, the way it's part of Chachma. That's why it's the Miluy of Chachma. Doesn't explain why over here in our mind why that is so. And he says, V'lachein Pirush Hayoshi B'Shamayim B'Yud Yisera, this extra letter Yud in the phrase Hayosh B'Shamayim, Ushiyumchechu B'Ze'er Anpin, it should come down in the midas. Hamshachas Moichin, the godless Mechachmo Bina Eloin, and a drawing down of a mature level of intellect, of a higher level of intellect from the supernal level of Chachmo Bina. Yisoid Abba, the level of Yisoid, is the level of Hashpah. It's the union, it's the place of joining between the Zachar, the last of Zeir Ampin, before it comes down to Malchus. So when Yisoid Abba comes down, so it's about transmitting and bringing down the level of Chochmah and Bina, the way it's part of Chochmah, to bring it down into Malchus, not the external level of Chochmah Bina that we mentioned before, the level of Tvuna that has to do with the Midas, but rather Yisoid Abba is responsible for bringing down something way beyond it. That's why we have the level of Ayoshvi Bashamayim, the letter Yud. And it doesn't stop there, but in the Chochmah Bina Eloin, we also, if I remember correctly, we mentioned earlier that Shebahem Meir Atika Kadisha, that in the level of Chachma Bina Eloin, the way that the higher level of Chachma Bina, to be able to have that great unity of Chachma Bina on this high level, it comes only thanks to a higher level, the level of Atik. So when we have Yisoid Abba channels the level of Chachma Bina Eloin, that in them shines Atika Kadisha, the level of the inner level of Kesser. So that's the way the Zoyar, and the Samach Tzedek brings us down, explains what does it mean when it says Hayoshvi Bashamayim instead of Hayoshev Bashamayim. So the Rebbe now takes that concept and relates it to our pasuk Al Divrosi Malki Tzedek. Al Derech Zeis Pirush. Al Divrasi B'Yud Yiseda, a similar way will be explained what it means Al Divrasi with the extra Yud. Instead of saying Al Divras, Sheta'ir B'Dibur, that in the level of Dibur, Divras, from the word Dibur, we know Dibur is the level of Sfiras HaMalchus, Bechinas HaMalchus, because the king reigns through his speech, he commands and so on. So in the level of Malchus shines Bechinas Chachma Bina Eloin, the highest level, because as we said before, when you have the level of Avram, Chesed, higher than Seder Ishtalshlus, connected with the Ata Kohen La'olam, so then the Ata is not just Ata without a Hey, but it's Ata with a Hey, showing that all the revelations from above come down. Top of page Yud Aleph, Ois Hey. Zel Gam Klolos Inyan Smuchim La'ad Goymer. This is also the general idea. Going back to what we spoke about at the beginning of the Maimer, what does it mean? They are support forever. What's the idea of support? It doesn't mean just picking up that which falls or preventing the falling, but it's adding and bringing something greater than what it had before. That's what it means. Assistance higher than what it has on its own. Like it was explained previously, Shu Inyan Hasmicha Va'ezel Lebchinas HaMalchus is the idea of support and help for the level of Malchus, like it says, Soymech Neuflim, the one that supports the fallen one that's going on Sukkos, David Hanifelis, it's going on Malchus, the way it falls at the level of Malchus, the way it's in a level that's a fallen level, because it's Ata without a Hey, so the Samach, the Smuchim La'ad, the level of, like we said, you remember the Samach he's soon going to bring in as Makif Arochik, it's entirely closed, it's not Bihis Yashvas, it's not settled. That is not just that it prevents it from falling, but it's a revelation of so much higher. Shebizman HaGolus, in the time of Golus, Yibchinas Nefilah Malchus, is in a state of fallen, like it says, Sukkos David Anifelas, And through this level of our avodah shemamshichim b'makom gavoya ma'od naila, we draw down into malchus from a much higher place, from a very great place, ad lebchinas hasamach, from such a high place till the level of the samach that we said before, shebchinas hamakif harochik. It is the distant makif she'ein le'achiza b'pnimius. It has no way of being grasped internally, not like makif hakod of the close makif. That close level does have a yashvus, is even though it's a makif, it still can be settled, just like the letter mem can be settled, but the samach is completely closed, which shows there's no grasp to it, there's no way of holding on to it. And in general, this is the revelation of Mashiach's times. The level of the samach, the level of the makif harochik. She says, like was explained previously, we said the word la'ad, which is everlasting, is from the expression jewelry and adornment. And the idea of jewelry and the idea of adornment is not something that we wear out of need. It's not an item of clothing that's necessary to protect us from the elements and so on and so forth, but rather, it's the idea of delight. It's worn just for its sake of pleasure and enjoyment. That this will become revealed when Mashiach comes. They'll have the revelation of the level of smuchim, that level of the makif, that level that is beyond the ezer, the higher, and say the rishtalshus, assistance to malchus, is smuchim. That assistance, that help, will be revealed when Mashiach comes, even though it's now as present also, but the revelation will be when Mashiach comes. This idea, this revelation of Mashiach's times is also the idea of Shabbos, because Shabbos is also the idea of delight and enjoyment, and also Shabbos has to do with Mashiach's times, like it says, Miz Mishul Yom Shabbos, it's going on Yom Shekul Shabbos on Mashiach's times. Ubefrat, and especially so, Baraiva Deraiva, in the time of the will of wills, which is Shabbos afternoon. That's called the Rotzen of the Rotzen. That's the level of Atik. It's the level of the inner level of Keser. That has to do with the level of Mashiach's times. That has to do with the level of the Samach that's higher than Seder Ishtalshus. This is also what it says over there. It goes on over there in Kapitel Kuf Yud. This is what Hashem says. He says to my master, sit on my right. So, as we said before, this is part of that Kapitel until Kuf Yud. And there's the way of explaining that the entire Kapitel is talking about David HaMelech. And there's the way of explaining that the entire Kapitel is talking about Avraham Avinu. In addition to that, in addition to the explanations that it's going that Adoni, who is the master that Avaya is referring to, it's going on Avram, it's referring to David. There's also the Sforno that says that it's going on Mashiach, sits to the right of the Eibishter. So we see again this association with this pasuk Smuchim La'ad La'olam, not only that's connected with Mashiach because of the word La'ad, but also because of the revelation that's higher than Seder Ishtalshlos, but also because of the pasuk that we say Nu'um Havai La'adoini Shev Liyamini. Then the Rebbe concludes, all this dependent. The revelation of Mashiach's times is dependent upon our actions and our service throughout the entire duration of Golus. And even this is especially so that we cause the Samshacha and we bring this about through the learning of the inner part of the Torah. In the inner part of the Torah is what's called the secrets of the Torah and the secrets of the secrets. Shehu inyan oisamach. The secrets of the Torah is like makif hakod of the close makif. Secrets of the secrets, that's the level of the letter samach. B'chinas makif harochik she'ein le'achiza pnimius, the distant makif that has no grasp, that can be internally grasped. Gefishu b'Torah, the way the makif harochik is to be found in Torah. Seemingly, where does it fit into Torah? You're saying it's not graspable. How's it come down to Torah? Torah is about learning and coming in a pnimis. So the Rebbe says, because we know everything needs to be reflected in Torah. Because since the Eibishter was istakel by Raisa Bara Alma, the Eibishter looked into Torah and created the world. So everything in the world, not just what was created then, but everything that will be in the world, which is all part of the initial creation, has to be already in Torah from the beginning. So therefore, even this Makif HaRochik is going to become revealed when Mashiach comes, and that a capability to bring it about, which is our avodah now, must be found in the Torah. The Rebbe goes even further. In such a manner, line 20, even the level of secrets of the secrets, which is seemingly so high and so removed, is drawn down and comes down in a way of study, in a way of understanding and comprehension mamish. So the most transcendent level is something that manifests itself in Chassidus in a way that we can comprehend it. Just like within our own microcosm, we are taking that which is beyond intellect, that which is totally beyond being grasped, and we bring it down into being able to be grasped in our mind. So this is being reflected as well in a wider way in the macrocosm of the world, that we take the level that's completely beyond the world, beyond Seder Ishtalshlus, and we bring it down into this world. And through that is fulfilled the general intention and purpose that Hashem desired to have a home down here below. The true and complete redemption. Golus, a redemption that has no golus following it. Therefore, Mashiach comes, we will say a new song, we will sing a new song, we'll say a new song, but it says chadash, not chadasha, lashon zachar, in the masculine. Going back to what we said before, that it's not just enough to have the level of malchus, which is the feminine, but we need to have the input from zachar chazdei, the level of the masculine of chesed as well, because that is Mashiach's times. He says, we won't say it in the feminine shir chadasha. What's the difference between shir chadash versus shir chadasha? Feminine versus masculine. A woman, she gives birth, and then she becomes again pregnant. That's the idea of exile. Exile is likened to pregnancy, because it shows that the child is concealed, the same thing, godliness and all this fetus and everything is concealed. So the idea that a woman can give birth, which shows on Geula, but then again she becomes pregnant, shows again that even after the Geula there could be a Golus. So therefore on the future Geula we don't say Shira Chadasha, because it's not going to be like by the feminine. As opposed to when Mashiach comes, there only be birth, meaning there won't be a Golus following the Geula. It will only be Geula, not Golus. Through Mashiach Tzidkenu. Like we said before, that's what it's referring to earlier, Shavli, meaning he will sit to my right. Kanal Sifhei, like we said in Oisei, Yavi Vigaleinu, because of Mamish, he will come and redeem us speedily, Mamish.